Today, the world is not just spinning, it's a moving fast, and honestly, it's a getting a little chaotic. We have got massive geopolitical shifts hitting the fan from the USA to Australia. If you're trying to make a sense of the noise in the right place, all stations, this is your Unified News. I am the Santosh. In the next 60 minutes, we will be breaking down the top 50 country stories that are actually going to the move to the needle on your life and your wallet and the map. Without wasting the time, let's move to the today's development stories. Just when everyone thought we were sliding into the World War III, Washington and the Tehran to take a breather. President Trump announced a surprise 2-week ceasefire with the Iran on Tuesday after high-stake back channeling in Pakistan. The deal halts 40 days of intense kinetic strikes that had rattled global energy market and sent the Middle East into the tailspin. This is not just a coffee break, it's a desperate attempt to stop regional brush fire from the becoming global inferno. With oil prices pitchy and the Pentagon's ammo budget sweating, this pause gives both sides a face-saving exit for now. Following the rescue of the downed US airman earlier this week, the vibe shifted from the total war to let's talk Pakistan playing the middleman, hosting delegates in Islamabad to hammer out the arms. Meanwhile, the Chinese yuan is already gaining around a market bet on the disaggregation that could stabilize trade routes. The guns are quiet for 14 days. If talks in Pakistan this Friday don't stick, expect the fireworks to resume by the end of the month. China is rolling out the red carpet for Trump. It's not just for the photo op. They are looking to rewrite the rules of the world. Beijing has officially labeled 2026 landmark year for US-China relations, signaling a major development pivot ahead of the scheduled summit between Trump and Jinping later this month. After years of tariff wars and chip hacking drama, China is smelling an opportunity with the US distracted by the Middle East. Beijing wants to position itself as a stable power while trying to some of those crushing Trump era tariff dialed back. Chinese Foreign Minister Yang hinted that the agenda for the high-level exchanges is already set. Beijing is pushing its global governance initiative, essentially trying to fill the vacuum left by the US, drawing from the various United Nations programs. They are playing the long game using the petro-yuan strength to flex on the dollar. Beijing is playing nice to get what it wants. We'll see if the art of the deal meets this match in the Forbidden City. Russia is feeling like a forgotten ex, watching the US focus all its energy on the Iran while the Ukraine front remains a meat grinder. Kremlin issued a statement Wednesday expressing hope for the new round of US brokered trilateral talks to end the war in Ukraine, complaining that the American negotiators are too preoccupied with the Iranian affairs. Putin is losing the spotlight and the initiative. By calling for the talks now, Moscow is trying to freeze the current front lines while the US is stretched thin, hoping to lock in the territorial gains before the Washington can pivot their full military industrial might back to Kyiv. On the ground, it's still ugly. Russian forces are initially targeting the civilian infrastructure in southern Ukraine with drones, while Zelensky has offered this own distress ceasefire. The Kremlin is also shaking up its internal leadership, eyeing the removal of several regional governments ahead of the September 2026 elections. Moscow wants to talk because they are tired behind the side used in the American foreign policy. If you thought shipping was expensive now, wait until you see what happens when the United Nations can't even agree on the don't shoot the tankers. Russia and China officially vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution aimed at the security the Strait of the Hormuz, a move that essentially leaves the world's most vital oil choke point in a state of the Wild West energy. By blocking the resolution, Moscow and Beijing are sticking a finger in the eyes of the US maritime dominance. It's a power move designed to show that the West End can no longer dictate the rules of international waters without their say no. The resolution was put forward by the Gulf states despite to stop the rising insurance premiums on shipping. With more than 1.1 million people displaced in the Lebanon and the energy shocks hitting Europe, the veto effectively keeps the pressure on the US allied and the market. The strait remains a power keg and the United Nations just took away the fire extinguisher. Italy's Meloni is learning that being a Trump bestie is in Europe is a lot harder when you have elections to win at home. Italian PM is reportedly distancing herself from the Trump administration as her quasi alliance becomes a political liability ahead of crucial European regional votes. This is a vibe shift from the global populist movement. Meloni needs to keep the European Union money flowing, and the Trump's Americans first tariff and erratic Middle East policy are making her look like puppet to Italian voters. While Meloni originally rode the same populist wave as Trump, the economic reality of 2026 high energy cost and the trade friction is forcing her to play modern European card to survive popularity. The global right is fracturing as the national interests start to trump shade vibes. The Trump administration is not just talking about the deportation anymore. They are making the high profile examples that are causing the diplomatic ripples from the Latin America to West Africa. The White House reaffirmed plans to deport high profile figures like Garcia to Liberia, signaling that the administration's re-migration policy is moving into its most aggressive phase yet. This is not just about the border security, it's a geopolitical tool. By forcing these countries to take thousands of deportees, the US is using the migration and leveraging the trade and security negotiations. In the Cuba, women are marching against what they call US energy blockade, while the US uses threat of further deportation to keep the Caribbean and the African nations in line with the Washington security demands. The invisible wall is being built with the plane tickets, and the world is watching how the US treats its neighbors. Ye wanted a world tour, but the UK said not on our watch. The UK government has officially blocked rapper Kanye West from entry, citing his history of anti Semitic remarks and the Nazi support as a threat to public order. These might seem like a celebrity gossip, but it's actually a major test of free speech versus the hate speech laws that are currently a massive cultural friction point between the US and its closely ally. The move comes as the UK seeks to distance itself from some of the more radical culture war elements coming out of the US, highlighting a grow ideological gap between London's Home Office and the current vibe in Washington. Yeah is the persona non grata in London, proving that even a special relationship has its limits. Iraq is becoming a no-go zone for the US allies as the rocket attacks and upstream protests turn Baghdad into the furnace. Protesters in Iraq warned the Kuwaitis consulate following a deadly rock attack, parts of the wider surge into anti-Western sentiment fueled by the US-Iran conflict. The US presence in the Iraq is hanged by the thread. Every time US drone hits a target in Iran, that street is Baghdad retaliates against the any target even remotely associated with the Western interest. 10 explosions were reported near Baghdad International Airport, a major of the US assets, just as the ceasefire was being announced. The Iranian backed the militants are not waiting for a piece of paper to stop. A ceasefire in Washington does not always mean a peace in Baghdad. Kim Jong-un is leaving Iran on trade while he tries to slide into the Washington DMs. Intelligence reports out of Cherno said that North Korea is keeping Iran at arm's length, wary of being trapped into a Middle East war, while they try to renew their own diplomatic dialogue with the US. Pyongyang is being optimistic. They have sold their missiles to everyone, but now they want to see if they can trade neutrality in the Iran conflict for sanctions relief from the Trump. South Korean officials noted a significant drop off in the high level exchanges between the Pyongyang and Tehran over the last month. Kim is likely waiting to see who wins the US Iran game of chicken before it commits to its own next move. Kim Jong un is playing the ultimate wait and see game, proving there's no loyalty in the axis of resistance. While everyone is looking at the Persian Gulf, China just moved the Gulf coast into the Pacific. China naval patrols around the Patas Island have been now normal, effectively squeezing Taiwan's maritime territory without firing a single shot. This is a salami slicing 101. China is using the US distraction in the Middle East to solidify its control over key South China Sea transit points, betting that the Washington won't start a second war or a few coral reefs. Analysis from CSIS highlights that these patrols are now daily simultaneously. Taiwan's opposition leader is in the China calling for the reconciliation, showing the Beijing's pressure and the pivot strategy is starting to crack Taiwan's internal politics. The new normal looks a lot like a slow motion blockade. Keep your eyes on the Pacific. Forget rule Britannia on the waves right now. The Royal Navy is watching the world's most important oil lane turn into the parking lot. The United Kingdom Ambassador Archie Liang issued a blistering expression of a vote on Tuesday, accusing the Russia and China of shielding their ally Iran after they vetoed solution to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This is a massive headache for the number 10, with the daily ship traffic through the strait plummeting from 150 to just 9 vessels. The UK is starting the barrel of supply chain collapse. It's not about the petrol prices anymore. It's about a direct challenge to the Western-led freedom of the navigation that London's global status relies on. The World Food Programme warns that this blockade could push 45 million more people into the extreme hunger by June. In response, Foreign Secretary David has convened a 40-country coalition, signaling that if the United Nations won't act, the UK and its special relationship pals might just have to take a matters into their own hands. The diplomats have failed. Keep an eye on the Royal Navy movements in the Gulf. This axis of the resistance talk is not just rhetoric anymore, it's a real world sewage. Keir Starmer is finally admitting what everyone been whispering over winds for years. Brexit needs a serious patch-up job. Prime Minister Keir Starmer told the reporters in London that UK must urgently repair the damage of Brexit, citing a shifting global security landscape and erratic signals from the Washington regarding the NATO. With the Trump making noise about the pulling the plug on the NATO, the United Kingdom feels suddenly very lonely on its island. Starmer is using the geopolitical instability card to justify a closer security and a trade alignment with Brussels without calling it rejoin. A delicate dance to keep both leaders and the European Union happy. Recent polling shows that nearly 60% of Britons now view Brexit as a mistake. With the productivity down 4% and the economic gasping, the security pact with Europe is being framed as a necessity to counter the Russian aggression, while the US is distracted by its own American first drama. Starmer is betting that the security is a softer word than the Union. Expect a flurry of the trips to Paris and the Berlin this month. Kanye West that he could drop a surprise set in London, but the Home Office just gave him a main character reality check. The UK government has officially banned rapper Kanye West from entering the country, citing his recent string of the anti-Semitic and pro-Nazi comments as the risk to public order. While it's look like celebrity drama, this is actually a major geopolitical statement. The UK is signaling to the world and specifically to the anything goes culture currently trending in the US that British hate speech laws and non-negotiable even for the American superstars. The Home Office used its conductive to the public go good powers, the same ones used kept on the radical preachers. It highlights a growing culture and the legal gap between the UK and the US more obsolete First Amendment vibes. Yeah is out and the UK's social conscience policy is very much in. Don't expect a Wembley show anytime soon. The city of London woke up with a hangover and realized that it was suddenly rich thanks to the few choice votes from the across the pond. FTSE 100 surged by the 2,150 points at the open today, hitting record of 10,613 as investors bet on easing global tensions following the US Grand ceasefire announcement. London is the world's commodity hub and it's hypersensitive to Middle Eastern jitters. The moment a ceasefire was whispered, oil prices took dive and mining stocks went into the moon. It's a temporary sign of better relief for the British economy that's been on life support. Airlines like IAG and EasyJet are the big winners as a fuel costs stabilize. However, economists warn their rally is fragile. If the Islamic bar talks fail on Friday, FTSE would give back all gains by Monday morning. The bulls are running through the London, but they are keeping one eye on the news alerts from the Persian Gulf. The UK is stuck in classical battle by do we save the planet or we do keep the lights on without relying on the Putin. News reports suggest that the UK push for the North Sea oil and the gas drilling could repair climate goals, sparking a fresh cabinet row over the energy independence versus net zero. This is the ultimate geopolitics at home story with the Strait of Hormuz blocked. The UK desperately needs its own energy but breaking the climate promises, making the UK look like the hypernet on the world stage, just as they are trying to lead on the climate tech. Chancellor Rachel is the feeling the heat. She needs the tax revenue from the North Sea oil to fix the fiscal black hole, but the green wing of the Labour Party is certainly a revolt. It's a security or unstability fight that's splitting the commons down the middle. It's a choice, go green and preach, or a drill non face the climate music. Number 10 is currently trying to do the both. Nigel Farage is the back in the headlines and he's making the big two parties split buckets ahead of the spring elections. Recent polling shows that Reform UK gaining significant ground with the party, now threatening to become the official positions in the several key regions. Farage is capitalizing on the broken Britain narrative. His migration, the cost of living, and the feeling that the UK is being pushed around by the US and the China. If reform continues this climb, he will continue to force the Starmer to harden his stance on the borders, foreign aid to stop the bleeding of the voters. The conservatives are the total jaws, according to some analysts, as they are trying to out the reform carriage on the right. This internal friction has a paralyzing British foreign policy, making London look indecisive to its NATO allies. The man in the pub is becoming a powerhouse again. Westminster is officially on high alert. While the US and the China fighting, the UK is trying to play matchmaker with the India, but the price of the entry is getting steep. UK-India trade talks have hit a snag over the visa liberation and energy cooperation, even as the Indian stocks like Interglobe Aviation Indigo rally on the back of falling global crude prices. India notes the UK is desperate for win post-Brexit. Delhi is playing hardball, demanding more visas for Indian workers in the exchange for the free trade agreement the UK so badly needs. It's a masterclass in the modern geopolitical leverage. Despite the friction, the economic ties are undeniable. That the rally is an Indian aviation shows the how interconnected the two markets are. If the Starmer can't land this deal, his growth agenda is basically dead in the water. London wants the trade, but the Delhi wants the talent. We all see the who blinks first. The special relationship just had gotten a new library and it's sounding look like the two on two all over again. British policymakers have begun officially using the term axis of resistance to describe the deepening ties between the US, China, and Russia, signaling a shift toward a more hawkish foreign policy. By adopting its language, London is aligning itself perfectly with the Trump administration rhetoric. It's a calculated move to ensure the UK remains Washington's first lieutenant in the coming decade of great power competition. The Foreign Office is particularly worried about the tactical cooperation between the Moscow and the Tehran in Ukraine and the Middle East. They are seeing the Iranian drones and the Russian intelligence working in the tandem, which threatens the UK's interest in both Eastern Europe and the Gulf. The lines are being drawn. London has officially picked its side. What happens the US does not stay in the US. Trump's deportation plan is sending shockwaves all the way to the English Channel. The UK Home Office is reportedly monitoring the UK's mass deportation strategy as the officials fear a displacement effect while the migrants headed for the US pivot toward the Europe and the UK. When the US slams the door, the pressure cooker of the global migration finds a new vent. The UK is already struggling with the small boats in the channel. If the US closes its border entirely, the UK migration numbers are expected to skyrocket. The Abrego Garcia case in the US being watched closely by the US activists and policymakers alike. It's a test case for how the Western diplomacy can grow in the migrating people before the international legal system breaks. One country's border solution is another country's migrant crisis. The UK is bracing for the impact. Scotland is facing a devilish problem that no amount of independent stocks and fix. They are running out of the young people. A new report from the University of Glasgow highlights that the Scotland's unstable geopolitical environment is being exacerbated by the aging population and the shrinking tax base. This is the silent crisis as the UK tries to pack its muscles globally. Its internal foundation are creaking. Scotland, course the which the UK nuclear reactors at the fast rate is becoming more expensive to run just as the board gets most dangerous. The report warns that the link between the EU policies and the economics and is broken. And while the leaders talk about the global Britain, the reality on the ground in Scotland is struggle to fund basic services like health and education. You can't have a great power navy if you can't pay for the sailors' pensions. Scotland is the UK's canary in the coal mine. When the petrol browser starts looking into the luxury item, even the fairest revivals find a reason to chat. Prime Minister Albanese and the Chinese Premier Li Yan has their high-stakes phone call on Tuesday, striking a surprise agreement to cooperate on regional energy security as the Middle East war jitters sent global prices into the stratosphere. Australia and China are not exactly besties yet, but with the Strait of Hormuz effectively no go John, both nations are speeding. The real moment of the alignment is the pragmatic pivot. Canberra needs to protect its exports and Beijing needs to keep its factories running without paying wartime prices for the fuel. The calls come just as the domestic pressure in the Australian reaches to boiling point over the fuel crisis. While the US-Iran ceasefire offered temporary weather, the underlying vulnerability of the Indo-Pacific energy lanes remains. Australia is currently weighing whether to build a massive liquid fuel reserves or accelerate the green pivot to dodge future shocks. The frozen relation is thawing under the heat of $2.5 a liter petrol. Expect more energy diplomacy from the Canberra as they try to hedge their bets between the DC and the Beijing. Donald Trump just reminded Australia that in his version new special relationship there is no such a free lunch. In his blistering Monday press conference, US President Trump sealed on Australia, Japan, and South Korea for their lack of support in the conflict. Iran, fuming their Pacific allies, have not done so to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This is the wake-up call for the Australian strategic planners. For the decades, Canberra has backed on the US alliance on ironclad guarantee. But Trump doctrine is making it clear if you don't help with the heavy lifting in the Middle East, you don't expect a blank check for your security in the Pacific. Attorney General Roland was forced to damage control on Tuesday, insisting the alliance remains fundamental while reiterating that Australia will not deploy troops for the offensive operations. The friction is palpable. Australia wants to focus on its backyard, while Trump wants to global coalition for his maximum pressure campaign. The Aussie mates card is not working as well as it is to be the Oval Office. Canberra is now waking up public pressure as to stay out forever past and the need to keep the US in the region. AUKUS is not just a fancy acronym anymore. It's a massive hole in the ground in Adelaide that finally getting filled with cash. The federal government has plunged an additional $2.7 billion to spread the construction of the Osborne Naval Shipyard in South Africa, Australia, the future birthplace of the AUKUS near clear powered subs. With the world getting unhindered as a recent Griffith University report put it, the government is desperate to prove AUKUS is actually happening. This is not just about the boats, it's about the industrial survival by locking in the shipyard now. They are trying to make the project bulletproof against the future political shifts in the both Washington and the London. The cost of this shipyard projected to hit $30 billion for the next decades, while the Virginia class subhubs from the US are not due until 2030. The Pentagon has been breathing down Canberra's neck to move faster. As a Premier Peter called it's just the beginning, but the clock is ticking to the infrastructure for the first US sub arriving in 2027. It's a massive gamble on the nuclear future. The sub build is officially full steam ahead, even the bill is eye-watering. Forget about the dollar diplomacy. Australia is using the traditional routes and the dialogue to stop the specific from the sliding into the Beijing's orbit. As the US aid to the Pacific Islands dips under the new Trump budget. Australia is ramping up private diplomacy and the regional investment to fill the vacuum and maintain its status as the partner of choice. The Pacific is not just a holiday destination, it's frontline of the new Cold War. With the China offering shiny infrastructure, Australia is layering into the soft power, culture ties, seasonal worker programs, and the cultural climate resilience to keep the neighbors like Solomon Islands and Fiji signing more security pacts with Beijing. CSIC analysts note that Pacific Airways are increasingly dominated by discussions of investment and the power politics. Australia's challenge is that many Pacific nations view climate change, not China, as their primary security threat. If Canberra can lead on the green transactions, the island might look elsewhere for help. If it battles for the hearts, minds, and maritime borders, Australia is playing a good neighbor role, but the competition is getting fierce. If you think the internet is in the cloud, think again. It's actually in the bunch of vulnerable wires at the bottom of the ocean, and they are under threat. New intelligence reports that raised the alarm or unpredictable risks to the subsea cables that connect Australia to the global digital economy, prompting calls for the massive security upgrade. In a hybrid war scenario, if you don't want to need invade Australia to cripple it, you just need a pair of bold cutters in the deep sea. If the geopolitical tension arises, these cables are carrying 99% of our data, are the Achilles heel of the nation's security. A March report highlighted that regulatory gaps and the physical vulnerabilities are being exploited by the grey zone actors. Australia is now looking to lead a regional initiative to safeguard their lifelines of the digital age, knowing the single disruption could wipe out the banking system and the communications overnight. The digital frontline is underwater. Expect cybersecurity to move from the laptop to the deep sea patrol boat. For 70 years, Australia plan was to follow the US. Now some of the smartest people in the room are asking what if the US stops leading? A growing chorus of the Austrian strategic thinkers is calling for the Plan B as global tectonic plates shift away from the traditional roots based order. The era of lucky country isolation is for between Trump's predictably and the China's salami slicing in the South Sea. Australia is realizing it can't just sit tight and watch. The debate is whether to double on AUKUS or build a fortress Australia that can stand on its own 2 feet. Former PMs and the economics are increasingly vocal about the unhindered state of global allies. The concern is that the US pivots entirely to the Americans first and ignores the Indo-Pacific. Australia will be the left holding a very expensive empty bag. The global debate is no longer if the things are changing, but how fast Australia needs to adopt. Australia sits on the gold mine of the stuff that builds EVs and the missiles, but right now, China is still holding the processing keys. Uncertainty is a rolling global mental fortress. This week, as the Australia attempts to fast track its own processing plants to break the Chinese monopoly on the rare earths and the lithium. This is the green war. You can't have the modern metallurgy or a modern green economy without these minerals. Australia wants to be a reliable supplier for the best, but decoupling from the China massive processing infrastructure is proving to be harder and more expensive than anyone thought. While Australia produces the raw core, sending its China to the refined as a massive strategic risk. Government is throwing a subsidies at the domestic value, adding there the energy cost spiking. The math is not always adding up for the local refineries. It's a race to see the Australia can become the renewable energy superpower before the next global supply shock hits. Trump's Garcia deportation plan is not just a American story, it's changing the vibe of border security in the southern hemisphere. Austrian border force is reportedly sharing notes with the US and UK counterparts as the wave of hardline migration policies sweeps across the Western alliance. Migration is the new wedge issue in the global politics. By watching how Trump handles mass deportation, the Austrian government is dodging, but how far it can push its own southern borders policy without losing its human rights credentials on the bold stage. With the global placement at high due to the conflict in the Middle East and Africa, the displacement effect is not a real fear. In the US and Europe hardened their borders, Australia became an even more attractive destination for people smuggling syndicates. The invisible wall is going to global. Canberra is watching US experiment with a very close eye. China just changed the map in the South China Sea, and the Australian trade routes are right in the firing line. The new normal of the Chinese naval dominance around the Pratas Island is forcing a rethink of the Australian maritime security in the northern corridors. Most of the Australians' wealth travels through these waters. If the China can slice its way to the controlling these points, they have a kill switch for the Australian economy. Canberra's dilemma is whether to join freedom of navigation patrols and the risk binging wrath, or stay quiet and watch the map change. The energy security deal with the Liang is the carrot, the naval patrols are the stick. Australia is trying to maintain a stable relationship while simultaneously building a nuclear sub to counter the very country they are trading with. The double edge is getting more difficult to pull off. The South China Sea is ultimately a test of the Australian strategic vision. You can't stop a nuclear submarine if half of the population is retired, the other half can't afford a house. A quiet crisis of the demographic decline is threatening the Australians' long-term geopolitical ambitions, according to the news report on national resilience. This is the internal front of the geopolitical shrinking tax base and the aging workforce means the less money for the offers and the more money for the healthcare. Without the fix for the population problem, the Australians' dream of being a regional midterm power might remain just a dream. The report echoes similar findings in the UK. The link between the domestic policy and the national power is undeniable. If the Australian can't solve its housing and the cost of living crisis, it won't be able to attract the talent gains needed to run the high-tech military. The biggest threat to Australian future might not be a foreign navy, but its own birth certificate. Westminster and Canberra are both learning that power starts at home. While the rest of the world is staring at the Middle East, the green-white north just got a more crowded and not with the polar bears. Defense experts issued a stark warning this Wednesday that Canada is lagging dangerously behind as Russia and China ramp up their military presence in the Arctic. With China declaring itself as the near Arctic state and Russia invoking absurd maritime laws to control ice covered routes, the pressure on Canada's northern sovereignty has reached a boiling point. This is not just about the ice, it's about the future of the global trade and resource control. As the northern sea routes open up, the Arctic is becoming the new South China Sea. If Prime Minister Mark Carney government does not fast track the defense infrastructure, Canada risks losing the ability to regulate what happens in their own graveyard. Despite amazing of the defense spending, retired military boss say the surveillance gaps above 60 are the worst they have ever seen. Meanwhile, the ice pact with the US and Finland is struggling to produce icebreakers fast enough to match the five-ship fleet China already has a crawling the region. The North Pole is no longer a frozen buffer zone, it's a front line. Canada needs to decide if it's going to be a player or a speculator in the race for the high north. Ottawa finally found the credit card and just in time because the neighbors were staring to the complaint about not paying our share. The Canada government officially announced it reached the NATO defense spending target of 2% of GDP for 2025-2026 fiscal year. This the milestone comes after the years of being labeled overloaded by the being labeled preloaded by the allies, particularly within the Trump administration. This is not just about the military toys, it's a massive diplomatic shield by hitting 2% mark. Canada is buying itself a seat and at the table with the hawkish the US administration, proving it's a serious player in collective securities, especially as the global conflicts heat up. War $15 billion in the last year alone came from the other government departments focusing on the cybersecurity, space, and Arctic sovereignty. The spending plan includes $59 billion over the next decade, much of its earmarked for the domestic infrastructure, which will give the Canadian economy much needed shot in the arm. Canada has paid its dues. Now the question is whether that the money will actually buy the security the world so desperately lacks right now. Canada is tired of being the US's plan B. So Finance Minister Francois and Philippine Champagne just flew to Beijing to see if he could find a plan B. High-level talks in Beijing that this week between the Canadian and the Chinese officials focus on the supply chain integrity and the massive 50% export growth target by the 2030. This comes as Ottawa tries to hedge against the crushing new tariff on the derivative metals and agriculture goods. It's a classic double hedge. Canada is desperately to diversify away from its overwhelming dependence on the US market, which has become increasingly volatile under the Trump's America First trade policies. China sensing an opening is rolling out the red carpet to secure the Canada as a stable energy supplier. While the US initiated unfair trade practice probes into the next 60 economies, including Canada, Beijing suspended some agriculture tariffs on Canadian pork. Bilateral trade is already at $120 billion, and the Prime Minister Carney is betting that strategic autonomy means having more than one big customer. Canada is playing the field. We all see the special relationship survive the high stakes vibration with the Beijing. When the Middle East catches the fire, Canada's oil patch becomes the hottest and real estate on the planet. The ongoing crisis in the Strait of Hormuz have turned Canada into the top energy power within the G7. As a Middle Eastern supply falter, Canada and the UK are the G7 nations with the surplus of oil and gas ready to hit the global market. This is the Canada's principal power moment. The war in Iran has essentially forced the world to realize the energy and dirty oil is a lot better than the no oil. This leverage is being used to lobby for the Continental Energy Alliance that would make it North America energy independent. In 2024, Canada exported $169.8 billion in the hydrocarbons to the US alone. Experts are now calling for the borders to be the afterthought in integrated energy machine that includes hydro and the nuclear power, ensuring the lights stay on even the Gulf stays dark. The great energy integration is happening. Canada is not just a resource farm, it's a G7 strategic fuel tank. Canada is slamming the shortcut door shut. If you want in, you are going to have to do it by the book. The strengthening Canada's immigration system and the Borders Act will see officially become law last month. beginning in the most aggressive Islam LGBT rules in decades. The most aim to close the loopholes and prevent surges in irregular entries triggered by the shifting US policy. This is the Canada preemptive strike against the migration crisis. By tightening rules now, the government is trying to avoid the political firestorm seen in the US and the UK, while they are also signaling the US administration that Canada won't be a backdoor for the migrants fleeing the US deportations. The law allows for the faster removals and requires the claimants to be physically present in the Canada for decisions. It maintains the safe third country agreement, meaning that most people crossing from the US are sent right back. The goal is sustainable and a well managed system that preserves public support for the high immigration levels. The welcome mat is still out. Its band moved behind a much heavier door. It's been made of steel, aluminum, or copper. It's got a whole lot more expensive to ship across the border. The Trump administration new derivative product tariffs took effect April 6, slashing 25% to 50% duty on various metal heavy goods. These moves hits the Canadian manufacturer particularly hard as many of the components are part of the integrated North American supply chain. This is the economic geopolitics at the most personal. These tariffs are not just about the trade, they are about forcing the companies to move their factories in the US. For Canada, it's a main direct threat to the manufacturing heartland of the Ontario and the Quebec. While some products made with the US content get a lower 10% rate, overall effect is massive price hike. Canadian trade officials are scrambling to file petitions, but the Trump administration has already terminated many of the standard feedback windows, leaving the Canadian industry in the lurch. The trade war was just entered its most kinetic phase. Canada's manufacturing sector is bracing for the long, cold winter. Canada and India just finished a long, awkward divorce, and they are already trying out the friends with benefits. Prime Minister Mark Carney successfully concluded his first official visit to India in March, aiming to bury the hatchet and the robot strategic partnership that had been frozen for the years due to diplomacy spats. This is about more than the just trade. It's about the critical minerals and the renewable energy. Canada wants India market and India wants Canada resources to power its green revolution by focusing on the people to people ties and tech work sites and trying to ignore the massive politics of the past. The visit resulted in the new cooperation agreements on education and clean tech. More importantly, it signals that Canada is moving past its key issue of citizen to focus on the broader Indo-Pacific strategy where the India is undisable player. The Cold War between the Ottawa and Delhi is officially thawing. Watch for the more tech investments in the Canada lithium mines. Canada is hosting the boards later next year, and the agenda just got rewritten by the missile strike. At 2026 G7 host, Canada is framing its leadership around the energy security and the global resilience, a direct response to the Iran conflict that has paralyzed global shipping. Canada is using its G7 movement to position itself as the stable, democratic alternative to the chaos of the Middle East and aggression of the China and Russia. It's a branding exercise intended to draw in the near-shoring investment from allies who are tired of high-risk supply chains. The concurrencies to be set for the 2026 will likely to dominated by discussions on the Arctic pivot and the continental energy. Canada's goal is to prove that global Britain and the Americas first and coexist. If the Canada first provides the resources to back up, then The mountains are calling and the Canada is ready to lead. Let's hope the world is ready to listen. Your high-speed internet is currently hanging by the thread at the bottom of the Atlantic, and the Russia knows exactly where to find it. Intelligence report that shared with the Karnik government highlights a drastic increase in the Russian submarine activity near the undersea cables that provide Canada's more digital link to Europe and the US. This is the silent front as a single accident at the bottom of ocean could knock out the Canada's financial system, the emergency systems and the communications. As the Russia faced the siege of Western sanctions, these grey zone targets are the looking increasingly tempting. The Canadian Navy is reportedly shifting assets to patrol these digital lines, but the experts warn we are going fully under the equipped for the deep sea surveillance. It's part of the wider Arctic Atlantic security gap that the story 1 and 2 are trying to address. The world's worldwide app is not just a wireless or a key as you think. Canada's digital surveillance is literally underwater. Mark Carney was a banker first. He's betting the whole house on the geopolitical aware uh, economy. The Prime Minister latest economic update centers on supply chain reconfiguration that moves Canada away from the just-in-time trade and towards the just-in-case resilience with the UN, US allies. This is the Carney doctrine. He is betting the US-China trade war with the last decades and the Canada needs to be a safe haven for the adoption resources gained into the tech hub that allows it to afford to lose. Investment is already surging in Canadian front-loaded pharmaceutical imports and machinery exports to the Asian nations. While the US focuses on the data centers, Canada is trying to capture the advanced manufacturing niche that China is losing to the tariffs. The banker PM is the playing long game. If he's right, Canada survives the Trump era stronger than ever. If he's wrong, the special relationship might broken for the good. Ireland has it built the entire modern economy on the build a low tax gateway for the US firms like the Google and Apple. The Trump's new American first flag stand threatening a 20% offshoring levy, doubling starting it on a potential exploder these companies that can pay for its schools and hospitals. Following the US-Iran ceasefire, Washington has pivoted its gaze back to the trade imbalances. Department of the Finance is already modeling a 15% drop in the tax for 2027. Meanwhile, the housing crisis in Dublin is fueled by the geopolitical refugees from the tech sector, creating a domestic pressure cooker that the government can't ignore. Ireland is trying to play nice with the DC while the keeping its gateway to Europe status alive. It's a €1 million tightrope walk with the new net. BGM might be a small, but is currently the biggest logistic gas station for the world on the brink of the war. The port of the Bruges has seen a 400% increase in the sensitive cargo transit since the start of the Operation Epic Fury, the US-led campaign in the Middle East, cementing the Belgium's role as the indispensable logistic hub for the NATO. While other countries argue about policy, Belgium is doing the dirty work. Every tank, drone, and shell heading from the US to Europe over the Middle East likely passes through the Belgian soil. This makes a Belgian a Tier 1 asset for the West and a Tier 1 target for the Russian sabotage. Following recent airborne attacks near defensive factories in France, the Belgian Cyber Command has gone to red alert, Brussels is also dealing with the Sahel fallout as the military juntas in the Africa squeeze Belgium traditional mining interests in the Congo. Belgium is the engine room of the alliance. If it stops, the whole machine grinds to halt. ECB just dropped a truth bomb. Pure heating the bill is the new invisible tax of the Middle East war. The European Central Bank issued a red carpet on April 7, warning the fossil inflation driven by the fossil fuel dependence is threatening to decouple the euro from its stability target. Ireland, the Netherlands, the Belgium are among the most energy dependent nations in the European Union. Even with the ceasefire in the Gulf, the fear of the future shocks is the keeping the energy prices artificially high, killing growth and making middle class Europe feels a lot of poorer. Frank of ECB noted that repeated energy shocks makes interest rate cuts almost impossible. In the Netherlands, this is the fueling the cries of the populist parties who wants to ditch net zero and go back to coal to save on cost. The green transition is being tested by the wall reality. The bill for the energy security is finally coming due. Ireland thinks your data is theirs. European Union thinks that it belongs to the Union. The lawyers are currently into the cage match. The European Court of the Justice set rule on the landmark case regarding the Ireland lenient data protection fines for the US tech gains decision that could strip Dublin of its regulatory power. This is the data geopolitics. France and Germany are tired of Ireland being a soft as a big for type. If the European Union takes over the data regulations, Ireland loses its last and major leverage point for attracting US investment. It's a fight for the US digital sovereignty of the continent. Internal European Union memo suggests a selective sovereignty strategy is being pursued by the largest states to rein in the small rogue regulators like the Ireland. Dublin calls its power grab. Brussels calls it leveling the playing the field. Ireland is losing its special status in the European Union. The days of the double Irish are officially memory. The Dutch and the Belgians are the teaming up to stop the ghost ships from the cutting the internet. A new era naval tour force between the Netherlands and the Belgian has begun 24 by 7 patrol of North Sea point farms and the subsea cables following some suspicious activity by the Russian research vessels. The North Sea in the world a vulnerability more power land with the Strait of Hormuz. The UK and the European Union are banking on the North Sea wind. If those cables get cut, the lights go out from the Brussels to Berlin. Intelligence suggests that Russia is mapping choke points in the North Sea as a plan B if the Ukraine war accelerates. The joint Dutch-Belgian force is a rare example of mini-lateralism with small states taking charge because they can't wait for the slow moving European Union. The blue border is the new anymore front line. It's now about a fish and it's about the Wi-Fi. The Netherlands is trying to save the world by shrinking its biggest airport, but its neighbors think they are just being a climate martyrs. The Dutch government a plan to cap national flights at the Schiphol airports has hit the geopolitical war as the US and the other European Union nations threatens reciprocal resistance on the Dutch. This is the green dilemma in the action to meet net zero. The Dutch may want fewer flights, but in the globalized world, the smaller aircraft means less trade and less influence. The US has already called the move as a violation of the Open Skies agreements. Belgium and Germany are the secretly thrilled, hoping to steal us lost traffic in for Brussels and Frankfurt. It highlights how green policies and can create massive friction between the even the closest allies. The Russian bear is eating a Belgian lunch in Africa, and the consequences are coming home to Brussels. Belgian mining is interest in the Sahel region are in free fall. Belgian history and influence is Africa is overprinting. This is not just about the money, it's about the strategic mentals needed for the green transition. As the Russia moves in Belgium and the wider European Union loses its grip on the supply chain of the future. The alliance of the Sahel states is the initially insulating Western partners for the Belgium, which still sees itself as an African power broker. This is a massive blow in the geopolitical prestige and economic security. Ireland's neutrality is looking for the luxury they can no longer afford in board of drone strikes and undersea sabotage. The Irish government has quietly increased its participation in European Union joint procurement for defense, a move that critics say is the first step toward the ditching its historic neutrality. Polling in Ireland shows a deep divide. Younger voters want to stay neutral, but the government is pulled by the Operation Epic story and the realization that Ireland is the lone petrol port can't defend a bathtub, let alone the North Atlantic. Ireland is a neutral in the name only. The security rally of the COP26 is moving faster than the vote. When the big boys France and the Germany are fighting, the little guys Belgium and the Netherlands are forming their own mini European unions. The Benelux countries, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg have announced a joint industrial strategy to counter the trade turbulence coming from the both Washington and the Beijing. This is the geopolitical survival 101 by pooling their resources. These small wealthy nations can act as a medium power. They are focusing on the AI sovereignty and the hydrogen tech to ensure they don't get crushed in the G2 US versus China rivalry. This strategy includes the 50 billion euros fund for the strategic resiliency. It's a direct response to the great supply chain reset and the sign that the European Union's internal geometry is shifting toward a smaller and more agile alliance. The small states are getting organized. Don't underestimate the power of the mini bloc with a lot of cash. That's all for the today's. Thank you for watching the Unified News.